Back in 1999, Tony Stark in Berlin meets Maya Hansen and Aldrich Killian. Aldrich Killian is looking for funding from Tony Stark for his projects under AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, but Tony Stark rudely and arrogantly dismisses him. Tony Stark and Maya Hansen go back up to her hotel room where she explains extremis her project she's been working on to regenerate human body parts. But the plant she's been working on explodes, and she continues to explain that it doesn't work and its subjects become unstable. Today we find Tony working on his latest Iron Man suit, Mark 42, which is a modular suit that he can control via nanites in his body. On TV, the Mandarin is taking credit for terrorist bombings. The president responds to these terrorist attacks with the reveal of Colonel James Rhodes in his new Iron Patriot armor. Tony and Rhodey are at a restaurant talking about the Mandarin when two kids show up asking for his autograph. The kids ask him about how he got out of the Tarian portal from the Tesseract in the Avengers. This sends Tony spiraling, and he runs to his suit only to find out that he's having a massive panic attack. At Stark Industries, Pepper Potts is still the CEO, and Happy Hogan, Stark's old bodyguard, is now the head of security. Pepper has a meeting with Aldrich Killian, who's seeking for funding for AIM for his Project Extremis. When he explains the project to Pepper Potts, she sees it as a weapon that could be used to create super soldiers, so she decides not to fund it. Pepper Potts arrives home and is greeted by the Mark 42 armor, remotely controlled by Tony, but this doesn't go over well with Pepper as she was excited for date night. Then Tony begins to explain to her how he has been having PTSD from the Avengers, and he's afraid of the next threat to come. Later that night, while sleeping, Tony Stark is having a nightmare of the Battle of New York, and the Iron Man Mark 42 armor gets activated and comes into their room. He immediately deactivates it, but Pepper then decides to go sleep downstairs. Happy Hogan follows Eric Solving, one of Aldrich Killian's men, to the Chinese theater, where he sees him drop off a briefcase for someone. Then that guy immediately overheats and ends up exploding and vaporizing everything around them. Solving ends up walking away, but Happy Hogan is in critical condition. The Mandarin then goes on TV and takes claim for the attack. As Tony is leaving the hospital, he is swarmed by reporters, and his frustration overcomes him. He threatens the Mandarin and challenges him and invites him to arrive to his house, giving out his home address. Once home, Tony goes over the Chinese theater bombing and finds dog tags, and Jarvis finds a similar explosion that happened in Tennessee predating the Mandarin that involved a soldier. Jarvis then makes a flight plan to Tennessee. Tony is interrupted when the doorbell rings and Maya Hansen shows up at his doorstep. Pepper's not happy with an old girlfriend of his showing up, and Maya Hansen is there to try and warn them of their danger that they are since Tony revealed his address to the world. Then they immediately get attacked by the Mandarin when he starts bombing the place. Tony commands the Mark 42 suit onto Pepper. Pepper takes the Mark 42 suit and gets Maya Hansen out of the building. As the Mandarin keeps bombing the place, the building begins to fall into the ocean, and Stark calls the Mark 42 suit back to him, but Jarvis reminds him that it's a prototype suit and it's not ready to fly just yet. Tony and the rest of his scouts end up falling into the ocean below, and the Mark 42 suit starts to take on water, and Tony ends up passing out. Tony is awakened to the sound of the Mark 42 going below 5% battery power, and then he crashes into the snowy forest below, and Jarvis tells him that he's in Tennessee. Tony finds a seemingly abandoned house and breaks into the garage to begin repairing his Iron Man Mark 42. Tony meets Harley Keener, a 10-year-old kid whose garage Tony broke into. Keener hands Stark a newspaper saying that Tony Stark is presumed dead after the attack on his house by the Mandarin. Maya Hansen tells Pepper Potts that she suspects her boss, Aldrich Killian, to be working with the Mandarin. Meanwhile, we get the reveal that Aldrich Killian is working for the Mandarin as he is aiding him in broadcasting all over TV. When Tony and Harley are looking into the mysterious bombing, they discover that the mother of the bomber is waiting for someone at a bar with files. Tony confronts her and finds out that the people she was waiting for were working for the Mandarin. Tony defeats them and escapes and steals their car, leaving Harley in Tennessee. On TV, the Mandarin threatens the president and tells him that he is the next target. Tony discovers that AIM is still working on Project Extremis and working on soldiers, and he discovers that the test subjects are not yet stable, yet Aldrich Killian is still selling them to the Mandarin. Aldrich Killian finds Pepper and takes her hostage. Pepper finds out that Aldrich Killian and Maya Hansen are both working for the Mandarin. Rhodey walks into a trap by one of the extremist soldiers in order to acquire the Iron Patriot armor. Tony checks in with Harley to get an update on the Mark 42 Iron Man suit, and he finds out that the suit is not ready yet for combat or flight, but Jarvis is powered on, and Jarvis is able to tell him that the location of the Mandarin's been broadcasting from is Miami. On the way to Miami, Tony stops at a hardware store and makes himself some homemade weapons. Tony takes out all the guards and finds the Mandarin. The Mandarin explains to Tony that he's just an actor pretending to be in the Mandarin in order to take credit for accidental explosions caused by the extremist program. Tony gets knocked out and then wakes up where he's chained and finds out that Amaya Henson is working with Aldrich Killian. Killian then shows up and shows Tony that he has turned Pepper Potts into an extremist subject. Amaya Henson finally realizes how wrong Killian's actions have been, so she decides to try and kill herself because she is the inventor of the extremist program, but Killian just turns around and shoots her and kills her. Tony escapes when the Mark 42 armor finally shows up. Killian manages to get Colonel Rhodes out of the Iron Patriot armor, then they use the armor to get access to the Air Force One, where they're able to get the President of the United States. Aldrich Killian plans to kill the President on live TV. Tony and Rhodey find the President, Aldrich, and Tony summons the House Protocol, which summons all of his suits that he's ever created. Pepper uses her newfound strength from the extremist program and kills Aldrich Killian. Tony then decides to blow up all of his Iron Man suits. Tony is able to cure Pepper from the extremist program, then he decides to go have the surgery to take the shrapnel out of his heart.
Consider this a lesson in what's real and what's not.
Why do people keep pointing guns at my head? Please, I don't want to die! I don't want to die.
Target acquired and imposition extraction unit mobilized. I'm not the one that's going to kill you, Mr. Slattery. I'm here to break you out.
That's nice.
Not really. You see, there's somebody who wants to meet you.
Do I know him?
No. But you took his name, and now he wants it back.
No, sorry. I still don't get it.
One more time. Miss that bridge, everybody. All right.
So you heard none of it?
I'm sorry. I'm not that kind of doctor. I'm not a therapist. It's not my training.
So?
I don't have the
What, the time?
temperament.
You know what, now that I think about it, oh, God, my original wound. 1983, all right? I'm
Yes.
14 years old, I still have a nanny?